Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. The main character, after dying in his previous life, he wakes up inside of high school DxD, and he wakes up as Hades with the record of Ragnarok summoning system. What is he gonna do inside of DxD?
Chapter 1: Death and Rebirth. Rain turned the loading yard into black mud and made every floodlight wear a halo. Adrian crouched behind a concrete barrier with blood warming his shirt beneath his jacket. Across the yard, the man who had sold out his crew stood beneath the warehouse awning and held a pistol against Myra's ribs. "Put the knife down," Dane called. "You lost." Adrian glanced toward the gate. The chain was cut, but the van beyond it would not start while the jammer remained active. Two of his people were pinned behind a forklift. Myra was still on her feet because Dane needed leverage. Every sensible choice pointed toward surrender. Adrian rose instead. "You always confused caution with obedience," he said. Dane's mouth tightened. Once they had trained together. Once Adrian had dragged him out of a burning stairwell. That history was why the betrayal hurt, and why Adrian recognized the small shift of Dane's wrist before the pistol moved. He threw the knife. Myra dropped. The blade struck Dane's forearm, spoiling his first shot. Adrian vaulted the barrier as gunfire cracked from the catwalk. Gravel burst beside his boots. He reached Dane before the second clean shot drove a shoulder into his chest and carried them both through a stack of empty pallets. The pistol skidded away. Dane caught Adrian's wounded side with an elbow. White pain folded the yard in half, but Adrian stayed upright and struck until Dane stopped reaching for the weapon. "The jammer," Adrian told Myra. She sprinted for the control box. His trapped crew broke cover as the floodlights flickered. For one breath, the escape route stood open. Then the warehouse doors rolled apart. Dane had not come alone. A man in body armor stepped through, with a rifle already shouldered. Adrian saw the barrel tracking toward Myra and knew there was no time to shout. He moved between them. The first round punched through his chest. The second spun him into the mud. Behind him, the jammer died with a shower of sparks, and the van's engine caught. Myra grabbed his coat. "Adrian, get up." He tried. His hands no longer answered properly. Through the rain, he saw the others hauling Dane's gunman off balance and heard the van door slam. "Go," Adrian managed. "Not without you." "That's an order." She hated him for those words. He saw it in her face, along with the knowledge that he had used the one thing she could not ignore. She released his coat and backed toward the van while covering him with Dane's pistol. Dane rolled onto one knee, blood running from his mouth. "All that pride," he rasped, "and this is what it bought you." The rifleman came through the rain with his weapon raised. Dane had one hand on the pistol and the other braced against Adrian's shoulder, trying to peel him away from the mud. "Let the van go," Dane said. "You can't hold both of us." Adrian looked past him. The taillights had reached the broken gate. Myra was bent over the wheel, one arm pressed to the glass, as if she could still reach back for him. "I don't have to," Adrian said. He pulled Dane's sleeve just hard enough to turn the traitor between the rifle and the road. Dane cursed and fought for the gun, but the delay was all the people in the van needed. The rifle cracked. Adrian felt the world kick sideways. Then the van was beyond the gate, its engine shrinking into the storm. Dane stared at him with an expression Adrian had never seen on his old friend. Not triumph, not hatred, but the sudden understanding that the bargain had failed. He had sold a crew for control and still lost the only thing he had come to take. "You could have walked away," Dane whispered. "So could you." Adrian's grip finally loosened. Rain filled the spaces between breaths. He thought of the old office where a man in a clean suit had offered him safety in exchange for obedience, of every small compromise that had followed the same shape. He had never been clever enough to avoid every fight. He had been stubborn enough to choose which line was his. Myra's van disappeared onto the road. That was enough. He had wanted command because somebody had to stand in front when the danger came. Now the people behind him had a chance to live. There was no hidden audience to applaud the choice. Adrian had never trusted clean endings anyway. Clean endings belonged to people who arrived after the work was done and named the blood sacrifice from a dry room. Myra's voice broke against the rain as the van cleared the gate. He could not hear the words, only the refusal inside them. Good, he thought. Anger would keep her upright longer than grief. Dane dragged himself toward the pistol again. Adrian's fingers closed around his sleeve with almost no strength left. It was not enough to win. It was enough to make Dane look at him instead of the van. Dane said, "You never knew when to bow." "I knew," Adrian said, though the words were mostly blood. "I chose not to." The rifleman shouted for a clear shot. Dane tried to wrench free. Adrian held because command had never been about surviving the order. It was about making sure the people who trusted him had a road when the cost arrived. The second shot took sound first. The yard folded into light, water, and the taste of iron. Adrian saw the van vanish beyond the chain, saw Myra still alive through the rear window, and let that be enough. He died with mud under his nails and no regret in his chest. The last thing that moved through him was not fear. It was the old, stubborn desire to stand where no one could make him kneel. Then even the rain was gone. The van reached the river road before the police sealed the warehouse. Myra kept one hand on the wheel and the other over the drive beneath her coat. She wanted to turn back, but Adrian's last order had been the only useful thing he had left her. The police found Dane alive, the rifleman unconscious, and the evidence scattered across the loading yard. Myra gave her statement without softening Dane's crimes or inventing a final apology for him. She told them he had held the line so the others could leave, and that the fact did not make him good. By dawn, the warehouse was sealed. The officers photographed the knife scrape in the mud, the dead jammer, and the open gate. Nobody wrote down what Dane had been thinking when he stopped reaching for the weapon. Myra remembered it anyway. Fear had outlived him, but it had not won the argument. Chapter 2. The King Wakes in the Underworld. Cold stone pressed against Hades' palm. He opened his eyes in a vaulted chamber lit by blue flames. A black spear rested across an altar nearby, its twin prongs catching the light. The hand braced beneath him was larger than Adrian's had been, pale and unscarred, with strength packed into every tendon. Memory arrived in two currents. One belonged to a dead man in a rain-soaked yard. The other carried the weight of an elder brother, a warrior, and a king whose body remembered battles his mind had never fought. Hades stood. The chamber seemed to shrink around him. He lifted the spear. Its balance was perfect. When his fingers closed around the shaft, an instinct older than his new heartbeat aligned his shoulders and feet. He could have split the altar with a casual thrust. He chose not to. Power revealed without purpose was merely noise. A faint pane of light formed at the edge of his vision. Record of Ragnarok's summoning system. Host recognized, Hades. Current authority, unregistered. Available summons, none. First condition, obtain legal recognition as a rating game king. The message disappeared before he could question it. No friendly voice followed. No instructions softened the problem. Footsteps stopped outside. A young devil in a grey steward's coat entered, saw Hades standing beside the altar, and nearly dropped the lamp in his hand. "My lord," he bowed on reflex. "The healers said the vessel might never wake." "Where am I?" The southern underworld, beneath the old Acheron district. This shrine belonged to a dead branch of House Vasego. The steward's fear smelled sharp in the still air. Hades lowered his aura until the blue flames stopped bending away from him. "And what am I, according to your laws?" The question startled the devil more than a threat would have. "Unregistered, my lord. You have power, but no house seal, peerage, territory, or recognized rank. If the registry learns you woke here, several families may claim the shrine and perhaps claim you with it." Hades walked past him into a corridor cut from dark marble. Beyond narrow windows stretched a crimson sky, floating estates, and distant cities threaded with magic. He felt noble crests pulsing like guarded fires. Farther away, something holy burned against his senses. This was not his underworld. Devils ruled it through bloodlines, contracts, and the public violence of rating games. Raw strength would let him kill anyone foolish enough to touch him. It would not give him legal control of land, pieces, wealth, or the institutions that made victory last. "Your name?" Hades asked. "Merek. Find me the laws governing independent kings, abandoned estates, and entry into rating games." Merek swallowed. "That archive is controlled by noble clerks." "Then tell them Hades requests access. And if they refuse?" Hades looked across the red horizon. His reflection in the glass wore silver hair, a dark eye patch, and the composed face of a king returned from death. "Then they will have taught me which door to open first," Hades said. Merek went pale, but he wrote the words down anyway, not because they were a threat, because they were policy. Merek led him through 3 sealed corridors before admitting that the shrine had no kitchen worth naming. Hades found 2 servants trying to stretch a single pot of broth between 6 people and ordered the vault opened for supplies. The older woman stared at him as though he had made a tactical error. "The vault was set aside for a master," she said. "It has won." Hades took the ladle from her, checked the thin broth, and set it back. "Feed the people keeping this place standing. A hungry guard is an unlocked door." The instruction ran through the shrine faster than a threat. By the time Merek returned with a registry runner, every hall seemed to contain someone pretending not to watch the newcomer at the center of it. The runner was a horned girl in registry grey. She offered a wax-sealed notice without coming within arm's reach. Hades read it once. House Astaroth had learned of a powerful awakening in an abandoned holding and wished to discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement. "They have not even seen me," Merek said. "They have seen an opportunity." Hades folded the letter along its existing crease. "That is enough." He asked Merek to list every person in the shrine, their work, their family, and who had been paid by Vasego before the house withdrew. When Merek hesitated, Hades added, "Not their secrets, their needs. If a noble house tries to buy this place, I will know what it believes it can take." Merek's pen scratched across his ledger. It was a mundane sound beneath the crimson sky, but it steadied the room. Hades had no army, title, or ally in this world. He had a weapon, an abandoned hall, and people who had expected to be forgotten. That was sufficient for a beginning. At midnight, he stood at the shrine's highest window and felt the distant pulse of noble estates across the underworld. They would test the unregistered man beneath the Acheron district. Let them. First, he would make certain that everyone under this roof had a reason to remain when the testing began. The next morning, Merek returned with 3 books and a face that said the archive had charged him for all of them. Hades cleared a space between the breakfast bowls and opened the first volume. The law did not ask whether an independent king deserved land. It asked whether the land had been abandoned, whether the claimant could defend it, and whether the claim could be witnessed without a patron house. A family could not seize the shrine merely because its seal was older than Hades' name. Merek placed the Astaroth notice beside the statute. "They want you to answer before you have a faction. They want me to answer before I know what they are asking." The smaller line beneath the offer required sponsored holdings to pay a percentage of every future rating game prize to the patron house. "There," Hades said, "the collar is in the margin." Merek's ears lowered. Could we afford to refuse it? Not if we measure survival by comfort. Hades walked through the shrine. The kitchen had food for the day. The western wall had a crack wide enough for a child to put a hand through. 2 guards had begun taking turns sleeping because neither trusted the other to hear an alarm. "How many people here would leave if Astaroth offered them wages?" Hades asked. "Most of them, if the offer were safe." Then we do not buy loyalty. We make staying less dangerous than leaving. He divided the remaining silver 3 ways: food, wall stone, and wages owed before any new project began. Merek protested that the sum would not last a month. A month is longer than a promise. That afternoon, Hades summoned the staff one at a time. He asked what the previous house had withheld, what the shrine needed before a noble could call it valuable, and what work each person would refuse without proper protection. Some answers were cautious. One was angry. None were flattering. The angry servant was an older guard named Oren. He had been paid for 6 weeks of watch duty with a promise that the dead lord would remember him. "I do not need a speech," Oren said. "I need coin before I stand another night beneath a broken ward." Hades cut a silver bar in half with the edge of his spear. He gave one piece to Oren and placed the other beside the peril ledger. "The first half is what you are owed. The second is what this house can afford to owe you if you choose to stay. If the ward fails because I ignored the wall, leave before it kills you." Oren studied him. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. It is not easy." By sunset, the staff had accepted the new ledger. Not everyone accepted Hades. That distinction mattered. A house built from forced agreement would only change masters when someone stronger arrived. Merek brought the Astaroth reply. Hades dictated 3 sentences. The shrine would accept no patron, pay all lawful debts, and submit an independent claim to the registry within 7 days. "That will make them angry," Merek said. "Good. Anger tells us where the door is." He signed with the provisional mark he had not yet earned the right to use. It was not a legal seal. It was a declaration that he intended to earn one. Chapter 3. The First Throne Room. The archive clerk tried to make Hades wait behind 7 minor heirs. He took the empty chair at the head of the reading table instead. The heirs objected until his gaze reached them. Then parchment became intensely interesting. Merek stacked law books at his elbow. Hades read through the afternoon, separating custom from enforceable statute. A devil without a bloodline could register an independent faction if he held uncontested property, demonstrated the magical capacity of a king, and survived a sanctioned qualification match. Peerage pieces required approval from the registry, but the law did not require a patron house. "They buried that clause 3 appendices deep," Merek said. "Because it is inconvenient, not invalid." Hades marked the page. "Who owns the shrine?" "No one." House Vasego abandoned its claim after the ley line collapsed. "Then we establish occupancy tonight." The clerk cleared her throat. "A throne room and 2 witnesses are customary for a faction claim." Hades glanced around the dusty chamber. "Custom again." "Yes, my lord." "Useful custom." By dusk, Merek had found 2 labourers and a mason willing to be paid from silver left in the shrine vault. They cleared the largest hall, raised the fallen columns, and dragged an iron-backed chair onto the dais. Hades refused the rotten banners. He sat while the witnesses signed the occupancy record. The chair was not a throne because it was ornate. It became one because no one in the hall doubted who held authority. The registry seal flashed across the document. "Independent holding recorded. Acheron Shrine. Faction status provisional." Merek stared at the fading light. "You built a throne room in 1 day." "No," Hades said. "We made a claim. The room will earn the rest." The clerk who had delayed him appeared at the doorway with 2 guards and a narrow smile. She carried a second document, this one stamped with the seal of an Astaroth assessor. The abandoned shrine, she explained, had accrued maintenance debt. The registry would be willing to forgive it if Hades accepted a temporary sponsor. Hades read the figure, then asked Merek how much silver remained in the vault. It was barely enough for the first payment. "Pay it," he said. Merek blinked. "My lord, that leaves very little." "Then we will have very little, honestly." The clerk's smile vanished. Hades signed the receipt in full view of the witnesses and pressed his new provisional mark beside it. A minor debt did not look like a battlefield. It was still a line someone expected him to surrender. When the officials left, the mason leaned his hammer against a column. The east wall leaks. Can it be repaired? With stone and labor. Then make a list. We will start with the wall, the gate, and the archive shelves. Hades turned to Merrick. Tomorrow you will show me the qualification regulations, not the version clerks hand to applicants, the version they use when they want to reject one. Merrick smiled despite himself. That version is much longer. Good. Hades remained in the iron-backed chair after the workers went to sleep. It was uncomfortable, unfinished, and exactly where it needed to be. He had died keeping a road open for his people. In this life, he would make a place that did not need an escape route. The following morning, Merrick returned with the qualification regulations and a warning from the archive clerk. Biran's family has already asked who requested the independent match statute, he said. They know it came from this district. Hades read the application form. It required a challenger to state the property at stake, the condition for victory, and the authority of the referee. It did not require the challenger to be liked. What does Biran want? A public win. His family is seeking a place in the local council. If he defeats you, the shrine becomes proof that independent factions can be absorbed. And if he loses? Then he loses in front of every family waiting to see whether the old rules still work. Hades set the form beside the occupancy record. Then the match is worth more than the shrine. They walked the holding before the venue inspection. The arena was not theirs, but the roads leading to it were. Hades counted turns, sightlines, and places where a frightened servant might be trampled by spectators leaving in a hurry. The mason followed with a strip of chalk. You are mapping an arena you do not own. I am mapping the people who will use it. At the east wall, Hades found a child watching the workers rebuild a fallen section. The child had a wooden sword and a serious expression. Are you going to fight the noble? He intends to fight me. Will you win? Hades looked at the wall. If I do, the wall still needs finishing. That evening, Merrick brought the venue contract to the throne room. A clause allowed the referee to stop the match if an attack threatened the audience. Another allowed the noble house to replace a defeated piece only if the replacement had been declared before the signal. Biran has 8 pieces, Merrick said. He expects numbers to exhaust you. Numbers are useful only when the person counting understands distance. Hades used stones from the damaged wall to mark likely formations on the floor. Merrick moved them as Biran's roster was read aloud. 2 rooks, 2 knights, 3 bishops, and a queen trained in binding magic. You could defeat them before they finish their first movement, Merrick said. Then the officials will learn nothing, and Biran will call the match a freak accident. You want him to understand why he loses. I want every witness to understand why the law remains standing after he does. The next day, Hades sent the completed inspection request to the registry. He listed the arena's damaged exits, the referee's authority, and the workers responsible for clearing the field. The clerk returned the request with one line circled. Independent claimants did not usually submit safety plans. Hades wrote beneath it, independent claimants usually expected someone else to pay for their victory. He sent the form back without changing the request. Chapter 4. A faction with no name. Registrar Maylies arrived with 6 guards and the smile of a woman expecting surrender. Independent registration is expensive, she said, laying a contract before Hades. House Astaroth could sponsor you. In exchange, your faction would answer to its regional office. Hades read the first page, then pushed it back. You brought me a collar. One guard reached for his sword. The marble cracked beneath Hades' spear before the blade cleared its sheath. A line split the floor between them, so narrow and deep that blue fire shone through it. Maylis raised 2 fingers. The guard froze. "No sponsor, then," she said. "What is your faction called?" Hades looked around the bare hall. Merek waited beside a pile of petitions. The mason still worked in the adjoining room. They had a holding, a provisional seal, and no peerage pieces. "It has no name yet. The registry requires one. The registry requires a distinct mark. Enter my crown." Maylie studied him, then pressed her seal into the contract. "A nameless faction bearing Hades' crown. Your qualification will be held in 3 days. Win, and the registry recognizes you as a king. Lose, and the holding returns to auction." "Who chose my opponent?" Her smile returned. "A young noble who thinks this will be easy." Hades rose, and every guard took half a step back. Maylis did not leave immediately. She watched Merek collect the unsigned sponsorship contract, then flicked a glance at the cracked marble. Biran's family will call the qualification a formality. They own 3 practice arenas and half the local referees. "Do they own the rules?" "Not all of them." Hades placed a finger on the clause naming the arena. A qualification match permitted an independent king to inspect the field 1 hour before combat. It also required the referee to record every illegal external spell. Biran's confidence had made him careless. Carelessness had put the information on paper. "Send the venue schedule to Merek," Hades said, "and the names of the referees." Maylis arched a brow. "You expect me to help you defeat a noble house?" "I expect a registrar to remember that a registry is weakened when its public matches are rigged." His voice stayed quiet. "If you do not, someone else will eventually explain it to you with less courtesy." For the first time, her expression held something besides calculation. "The file will be delivered." After the guards departed, the mason brought Hades a small iron plate stamped with the provisional mark, a dark crown above a 3-pronged spear. There was no family name beneath it. "Should I add one?" the mason asked. Hades considered the blank metal. The first faction he had led had been made of people, not a title. This one would be the same. "No, let the crown mean the house." That evening, he walked the shrine grounds with Merek. They counted doors, measured the weakest sections of wall, and found a forgotten service tunnel leading toward the district market. It was unglamorous work. It was also the work that would decide whether the holding survived after its first public victory. At the gate, Merek asked, "What if Biran refuses to accept the result?" Hades rested the spear across his shoulder. "Then he will learn that a match is the most merciful way to lose an argument." The qualification notice reached Biran before the inspection report did. His reply arrived by a servant who wore a family color but carried no family seal. Merek held the letter up to the lantern. "He says the match can be moved forward by 1 day." "Why?" "His family is hosting a dinner for the local houses. They want the audience present before they hear the registry's safety objections." Hades took the letter. The request was written as courtesy, but the final sentence threatened to count a refusal as evidence that the shrine feared public judgment. "Accept the earlier date," Hades said. Merek looked up sharply. "They are trying to rush us. They are trying to make the arena their room. We will arrive before the guests and inspect it while it is still the referee's room." Maylis came to the shrine that evening without guards. She found Hades at the map table, not on the iron-backed chair. "Biran's father has asked the registry to deny your inspection request," she said. "He claims the request is an attempt to embarrass his family." "Is it?" "You are making it difficult for me to answer, as a neutral official." Hades poured her tea. She did not drink it. "A referee cannot be neutral if one family chooses the field, the audience, and the paperwork," Hades said. "Neutrality begins when each side can read the same rules." Maylis placed a sealed packet on the table, the venue's actual maintenance record. Biran's family has been repairing the western exit with temporary magic for 3 years. The exit is safe until the first large impact. Merek's hand tightened around the map. Why give us this? Hades asked. Because if the exit fails during a public match, the registry will be blamed. I dislike being blamed for other people's shortcuts. Hades copied the measurements into his report. He did not ask Meles to alter the official record. He asked her to sign that she had delivered it. She signed. Before leaving, Meles looked at the crown mark on the iron plate. You could name the faction after yourself. It would frighten them. Fear already knows my name. The house needs a name that belongs to the people who keep it standing. At dawn, Hades walked the workers through the route to the qualification arena. He assigned no one a heroic role. The strongest carried the water. The fastest carried the stretcher. The people who knew the market roads carried the keys. One guard objected that the plan looked ordinary. That is why it may work, Hades said. A trap expects a performance. It is less prepared for people doing their jobs. By nightfall, Biran's dinner invitation had become public. The registry had accepted the inspection request, and the western exit had 3 witnesses assigned to it. Hades returned to the empty throne room and laid the spear across the chair. Tomorrow, he would enter an arena built to make him look temporary. Tonight, the shrine was already less temporary than it had been that morning. Chapter 5. The Crown Recognized. The qualification arena resembled a ruined city square. Hades entered alone. Across the field, Lord Biran deployed 8 peerage members among the broken buildings. Yield now, Biran called through the broadcast spell. I may let you keep the shrine as my vassal. Hades planted his spear. Begin. Biran's rooks charged from opposite streets while bishops filled the sky with fire. Hades stepped once. His aura struck first, extinguishing half the spells and driving both rooks to their knees. He turned his spear sideways and caught a knight's blade on the shaft. The impact shattered every window along the street. He could have ended the match with a thrust. Instead, he watched how the barrier reacted and how the judges marked defeated pieces. He was learning the machinery he intended to command. Biran ordered a combined attack. Hades waited until every remaining opponent committed, then drove the spear's butt into the ground. The square buckled. Stone rose in a circular wave, throwing the peerage from its feet without killing anyone. Hades crossed the distance before Biran could stand and stopped a prong against the young lord's throat. Your king is defeated, the announcer said into a stunned arena. The registry seal appeared above Hades' hand. Crimson pieces materialized inside a dark wooden case, a king's authority and the empty rolls of a peerage waiting to be filled. Legal recognition obtained. First major reward available. Hades closed the case. The arena expected celebration. He gave it certainty. The shrine remains independent, he said, his voice carrying through the broadcast spell. Any house that disputes its status may file a challenge under the same rules. Biran's supporters began shouting before the announcer could repeat the ruling. One of his bishops tried to rise with magic sparking around her hands. Hades looked at her, not angrily, merely with the calm attention of someone deciding whether a door was locked, and she let the spell die. The chief referee approached with the document case. You have been entered into the king's registry. Your first recognized match may be scheduled after your peerage is declared. It will be declared tonight. Biran pushed himself up from the broken street. His face was grey with fury. You embarrassed me for an audience. You entered an arena and announced your terms. The audience merely heard the answer. Hades left him there. He did not need to add humiliation to a lesson that had already been public. Outside, Merek met him with a ledger clutched tight enough to wrinkle the cover. For once, the steward did not look afraid. He looked overwhelmed. You are a king, he said. Hades handed him the wooden case. Then we have work. Secure the shrine. Inform Melees that the registration witnesses will be received at sunset. Have the kitchen prepare enough food for them and the staff. For the staff, too. A house does not become a house because officials approve it. As they crossed the market road, the crimson case pulsed once beneath Merek's arm. Hades felt the system's presence like a distant bell, not a voice demanding worship. A reward waited behind a condition he had met by his own will. Whatever stepped through that door would be judged by the same rule as everyone else. No one under his crown would be treated as a disposable piece. The registration witnesses arrived at sunset, expecting a celebration. Hades received them in the kitchen instead of the throne room. The officials stopped at the threshold. The staff had pushed 2 tables together, and the meal was already being served. There was no raised platform, no ceremonial music, and no space for a witness to pretend that the people who built the shrine were scenery. "This is not the customary setting," one registrar said. "The custom does not feed anyone," Hades answered. "Sit." The first course was plain. The conversation was not. One witness asked whether Hades intended to fill every peerage role immediately. Another asked whether the shrine could survive an attack from a recognized king. A third watched the staff watch Hades. Merek placed the crimson case on the table. It remained closed. "The system has acknowledged the qualification," he said quietly. "The first reward is waiting for a recognized peerage declaration." Hades looked toward the empty chair beside the head of the table. A piece could create power. It could not create trust. A summon could arrive in a room that had not decided what kind of house it wanted to be. "No one is declared tonight," Hades said. The registrar's brows rose. "Delay may be interpreted as refusal." "Then record that I refused to make a person into a solution before I knew what I was asking of him." After the officials left, Hades walked through the shrine with the qualification documents under his arm. The wounded guard at the western exit had received his pay. The mason had marked the unsafe stones. The staff had begun using the new meal rule without asking permission. Oren met him beside the gate. "The nobles will say your victory was luck." "They may say it. They will say the registry only recognized you because Melees dislikes Baran. They may say that too." Oren frowned. "Does nothing they say matter?" Hades looked back at the shrine. "It matters when it changes what people believe they can do to us. Words are weapons. They are simply slower than spears." The next morning, the official record arrived with a correction. Baran's supporters had claimed Hades threatened a bishop into surrendering. The referee's account stated that the bishop raised a spell after the match and lowered it when Hades looked at her. Hades did not demand an apology. He asked the referee to publish the complete sequence, including the moment before the bishop chose to stop. The record was longer than the accusation and less dramatic. It was also harder to use as a weapon. Merek found Hades in the archive, reading the first challenge notice as though it were a map. "You could open the case now," he said. "I know." "Then why are we reading a challenge from a family that cannot afford to send it?" Hades turned the notice around. The seal had been pressed too hard. The young lord who signed it wanted the reputation of challenging a king, but the paper showed that his treasury was already strained. "Because he has mistaken a public wager for a private rescue," Hades said. "Before I answer, I want to know who will pay if he loses." Merek read the final line. His expression changed. "A mana pool," he said. "He has offered a mana pool as the stake." Hades closed the ledger. The reward case remained unopened behind him. Beyond the archive window, the shrine's first gate swung in the wind and held. "Now," Hades said, "we have a question worth answering." Merek did not close the ledger. If the family can wager a mana pool, they can afford to lose it. Or they can afford to risk something that belongs to people who will never sit at the challenge table. The distinction changed the answer Hades intended to send. He added a request for the pool's ownership records, the names of the workers who maintained it, and the law governing a transfer after a rating game victory. The young lord could call the offer generous. Hades would know whether it was his to offer. At the bottom of the page, Merek wrote one more question. What happened to the people living beside a resource when a noble house lost control of it? Hades looked toward the dark window. The shrine's first public victory had purchased a title. The next decision would determine whether that title could survive contact with the lives beneath it. Merek sanded the ink before closing the book. Then we answer the challenge with conditions. We answer it with facts first, Hades said. Conditions come after we know who is being asked to pay. He placed the challenge notice beneath the legal records instead of above them. The gesture made the paper look smaller, but it did not make the offer less dangerous. Somewhere beyond the shrine, a young lord had put a resource on the table to purchase an advantage. Hades intended to learn whether the resource belonged to the lord, the family, or the workers who depended on it. The ledger stayed open. Chapter 6. The King and His Queen. Hades returned to the shrine with the peerage case beneath one arm. Meles, Merek, and 3 registry witnesses followed to certify his first piece. The system pane appeared above the empty dais. Achievement confirmed. Recognized rating game king. First summon unlocked. Adam. Light gathered without heat. The hall filled with a pressure that made the witnesses clutch the walls. A barefoot man stepped from the radiance, wearing only a leaf at his waist, his blonde hair stirring in a wind no one else could feel. Adam opened clear blue eyes and looked directly at Hades. "You're not the one I expected," he said. "Nor is this the world either of us knew." Hades opened the case and lifted the queen piece. "I will not pretend this is freedom without obligation. Join my peerage, fight beside me, and help me build a house no god or devil may divide. You will be family, not property." Adam looked past him at the frightened witnesses. "And the children here. Mine to govern if they enter my protection. Theirs to choose whether they do." A small smile touched Adam's face. "Good answer." He held out his hand. Hades pressed the queen piece to his palm. Crimson light wound around Adam's arm met the divine force within him and recoiled hard enough to rattle the windows. The piece changed, layers of power folding into it until the bond stabilized. Meles stared at her instrument. "That value is impossible." Adam flexed his fingers. "People say that often when their measurements fail." Merek made a strangled sound that might have been laughter. Hades offered his forearm. Adam clasped it. "Welcome home, brother." The word erased the last of Adam's reserve. He drew Hades into a brief, crushing embrace, then stepped back as if nothing unusual had happened. One of the witnesses, desperate to recover dignity, asked, "Why assign a man the queen role?" Hades' gaze chilled the hall. Adam answered first, "Because it's the strongest piece." By evening, he had found the shrine's neglected orchard and returned with an armful of apples. Hades discovered him stretched across the foot of the dais, eating one while reading the public rating game schedule upside down. "Our first recognized challenge is tomorrow," Hades said. Adam bit into the apple. "Then you should sleep." "I do not require your permission." That wasn't permission, it was advice. Merek arrived with the referee's confirmation and stopped short at the sight of Adam on the dais. His eyes went to the queen piece, then to the apple, then to Hades, as though none of the available questions could safely be asked. Adam solved the problem for him. "Do you know where the kitchen keeps the honey?" Merek pointed. Adam thanked him and left at once, barefoot and entirely unconcerned by the way every servant in the corridor flattened against the wall. "He is your queen," Merek said at last. "He is Adam." Hades opened the match notice. "The roll tells the board where to place his strength. It does not tell this house who he is." The first challenge came from a minor house that had assumed registration would tame Hades. Their message demanded he name a formal patron before they would share an arena. Hades wrote one line beneath it. The arena has already been certified. Attend or forfeit. Adam returned with honey on his thumb. He read the reply over Hades' shoulder and grinned. You like sending people short letters. Long letters give cowards places to hide. Adam considered that, then sat beside the map rather than across from it. What do you want from tomorrow? Information. The match will show which houses are brave, which are greedy, and which believe a larger peerage means they cannot lose. And if they are dangerous. Hades looked at the new bond gleaming faintly on Adam's hand. For the first time since waking, the weight of this world did not rest on him alone. Then we meet them together. The registry witnesses did not leave immediately after Adam accepted the queen piece. Maylis remained beneath the archway with her instrument held in both hands, staring at the numbers as though a second look might persuade them to become respectable. The other witnesses had retreated to the safer end of the hall. Adam ignored all of them and turned his palm over beneath the crimson mark. Does it hurt? Merrick asked. No. Can you feel the king through it? Adam looked at Hades. A little. That answer changed the room. The witnesses had expected obedience to be the first proof of a successful reincarnation. Instead, Adam flexed his fingers and asked, Can I refuse an order? The oldest registrar inhaled sharply. Hades answered before anyone could turn the question into scandal. Yes. Maylis lowered the instrument. That is not how peerage authority is usually described. I did not ask how it is usually described. Adam's eyes stayed on him. A battle order. You may refuse. A direct order to protect someone. You may refuse. An order you think will get you killed for nothing. Hades' expression did not change, especially that one. One witness began writing so quickly his quills scratched through the paper. Adam glanced toward him. You realize they are going to call this weakness. They already call 2 pieces a weakness, Hades said. Let them collect mistakes. He took a clean sheet from Merrick and wrote the terms himself. A member of the peerage retained the right to refuse a command outside an active rating game. During a sanctioned match, refusal remained possible, but the piece would be required to explain the refusal after the danger had passed, unless doing so would expose someone else to harm. No refusal could be punished by seizure of wages, shelter, food, or status within the household. Merrick read the paragraph twice. You are writing limits on yourself. I am writing limits on the office. The distinction silenced him. Adam took the page next. He did not read it ceremonially. He read it like a man who had spent one lifetime watching authority become an excuse. When he reached the final line, his thumb stopped over the ink. And if I leave, the bond can be dissolved. Maylis finally spoke, not without damage. Then we learn how to reduce the damage before anyone needs the door. Adam smiled slowly. You really do hate cages. Hades looked toward the crown mark on the wall. I hate cages that call themselves homes. That evening, Adam walked the shrine alone. He visited the orchard first because the apples were easiest to understand. Then the kitchen, where the older cook who had challenged Hades over the vault handed him bread without asking whether divine humans ate devil food. Adam ate 2 pieces to spare her the uncertainty. The guards were harder. Oren stood at the western wall while workers reset the damaged ward stones. He had been warned that Adam was stronger than every devil in the shrine combined. The warning had not prepared him for the man carrying a basket of apples. You are the queen, Oren said. Adam looked down at the basket. Apparently. I expected armor. I expected pants. Oren laughed before remembering he was supposed to be careful. Adam leaned against the repaired section of wall. How long has this been cracked? Years. And no lord fixed it. Every lord planned to. Adam looked toward the manor. Hades already paid for stone. He paid wages first. That mattered enough to make Adam quiet. At sunset, he found Hades in the small archive with 3 challenge records open and a 4th balanced on one knee. Merek had fallen asleep in a chair with a ledger on his chest. Adam placed an apple on the nearest page. "You are going to ruin the records," Hades said. "You are going to ruin yourself. I have been awake for 1 day. You were dead before that. It does not count as rest." Hades looked at him over the edge of the paper. Adam expected irritation. Instead, Hades closed the file. "Walk with me." They went to the roof. The underworld stretched below in red-black distances. Estate lights floated across the horizon. The shrine's own lamps looked smaller than all of them, a handful of points around broken stone and an orchard nobody important had cared to buy. Adam rested his forearms on the parapet. "I remember children," he said. Hades waited. Not names, faces, the feeling of standing between them and something that thought being stronger made it correct. Adam touched the queen mark. "This body remembers dying for them. I remember wanting to." "Does that frighten you?" "No," Adam considered. "What frightens me is how easily wanting to protect people becomes deciding for them." Hades looked down at the western wall, where Oren was arguing with the mason over the height of a ward post. "Then remind me." Adam turned. "If I begin confusing protection with ownership," Hades said, "remind me." "You are asking your queen to challenge the king." "I am asking my brother." The word still landed strangely, not unpleasantly. Adam looked back over the estate. "Fine, but if I am your brother, I get to tell you when you are being stupid." "You already have." "I am establishing jurisdiction." Hades almost smiled. Below them, the kitchen bell rang. Adam pushed away from the parapet. "Food." "I have work." Adam stopped. Hades looked at him. Adam pointed one finger toward the stairwell. For several seconds, the new king of an independent devil faction and the first man of humanity stared at one another across the roof. Then Hades sighed and followed. Merek woke to find both of them at the kitchen table. The witnesses had gone. The queen peace had been certified. No one had died, no one had knelt, and the most powerful new member of the faction was arguing with the king over whether 3 apples counted as a meal. Merek opened the ledger and added one line beneath the day's registration. "First piece accepted." After a moment, he added another. "House still standing." Chapter 7. Apples in the War Room. Their first official opponent brought 15 pieces and a fortress map designed for attrition. Adam entered, carrying an apple. "Is that necessary?" Hades asked. "Breakfast is necessary." The signal sounded. Enemy pawns rushed the lower gate while 2 knights circled toward Hades. Adam walked through the center lane at an unhurried pace. A rook swung a hammer at his head. Adam leaned aside by less than an inch, copied the devil's reinforced strike, and returned it with perfect form. The rook crossed 3 courtyards before the barrier retired him. The audience went silent. Hades intercepted both knights with the shaft of his spear. He redirected one into the other, then pointed toward the fortress tower. "The king is hiding behind 3 barriers." Adam finished his apple. "Do you want him?" "Show me what my queen can do." Adam smiled. Every spell aimed at him missed by the smallest possible margin. He crossed the fortress while copying footwork, reinforcement, and a bishop's compression spell after seeing each technique once. When he reached the tower, he tapped the final barrier with 2 fingers. Its own frequency returned through it and broke the formation from within. The opposing king surrendered before Adam touched him. Back at the shrine, Hades spread maps across the war room table. Adam lay on the rug beneath an open window, another apple balanced on his chest. "You frightened them," Hades said. You asked for a demonstration. I approve. The victory should have ended with the referee's announcement, but Adam remained in the empty arena while the last barrier dissolved. You keep looking at the seats, Hades said. Adam rubbed a thumb over the apple in his hand. There were children in the third gallery. They were cheering for the loudest attack. And now they are asking why 2 people were enough. Hades looked up at the crystal balconies. Most spectators had already left. A few remained behind their privacy screens, pretending to study the match record while watching the 2-member peerage instead. The question would travel faster than any official ranking. Why had Hades refused extra pieces when a conventional king could have filled a whole board? Adam tossed him the apple. Hades caught it without looking. You could summon more of us, Adam said. One day. When the house needs them, not when the audience is uncomfortable with an empty chair. Adam smiled. That is a very kingly way to say you dislike paperwork. The announcer approached with a recording crystal and stopped several paces away. Hades accepted the official result, declined the interview, and asked for the names of every spectator injured by the collapsing maze. The clerk blinked, then began searching. Adam watched him go. You know they will call that arrogance. They may call it whatever makes them sleep. The injured still need treatment. When they left, Adam walked beside him instead of behind him. The gesture was small, but the cameras caught it. By evening, the first public image of Hades' faction was no longer a king standing alone. It was a king and his queen leaving a battlefield together. Chapter 8. The Calm Before Rating Games. 3 victories filled Hades' mornings with petitions. He rejected the marriage proposal without opening its perfume-soaked envelope, approved repairs to the western wall, and marked 2 mines whose owners were offering favorable contracts only because they expected his faction to fail. Adam lounged on the window seat, cutting an apple into uneven slices with a paring knife. You missed lunch, he said. I was present. Sitting near food is not eating. Hades looked up from a stack of rating game records. You have adopted a strange definition of royal council. Adam placed a slice on the open ledger, and you have adopted a strange definition of living. Merek entered with the next challenge notice and stopped when he saw fruit on an official document. Lord Dantalion requests a match in the glass desert, full peerage, public broadcast. Hades studied the opponent's record. Aggressive knights, illusion specialists, and a king who favored ambushes beneath mirrored terrain. Accept, he said. Demand mineral rights to the eastern ridge as the stake. After Merek left, Adam tapped the apple slice. Hades ate it. Satisfied. For now. That evening they walked the shrine grounds while servants lit lanterns along repaired paths. The building was no longer a tomb. A cook argued with a mason through an open kitchen window. 2 displaced families had accepted Hades' protection and moved into the outer wing. Adam watched a child chase moths near the orchard. This is why a house matters. Hades followed his gaze. Victory had begun as a route to rank. Here it acquired faces. The next morning Adam found Hades asleep over 3 rating records and a half-drawn map of the shrine. He placed an apple beside the ink pot. Hades opened one eye. If you are going to rule a territory, Adam said, you should learn where the roof leaks. The roof does not leak. Adam pointed upward. A thin line of water fell from the ceiling and landed on the corner of the map. Hades stared at it, then at the map. Divine energy gathered in his fingers. Adam caught his wrist. No blasting the library. It would be efficient. It would also remove half the library. They climbed to the roof with a bucket, seal chalk, and an argument about whether a king should repair his own wards. The damaged rune had been cut by a previous owner's knife, not whether. Hades traced the break and found a tiny Aurea trademark hidden inside the stone. Adam's humor faded. Someone wanted the shrine to fail slowly. Someone wanted to know whether we would notice. Hades repaired the ward without erasing the mark. He copied it into the ledger, then ordered the servants not to change the roof tiles until Merek could inspect the whole line. That evening, the audience's debate about their victory reached the shrine through message crystals. Some called Adam a queen without a peerage. Others called Hades a temporary curiosity. Hades closed the messages and returned to the map. Adam peeled another apple. You are not angry. No, they are telling us where they intend to look next. Adam considered that, then handed him half the fruit. Below them the corrected ward held, quiet and unseen. The house had won its first match. Now it had to survive being noticed. Hades and Adam stood apart from the others while the arena crystals cooled. Adam wanted to know whether the king had planned the outcome. Hades admitted that he had planned only the choices he could control. That answer bothered Adam more than a boast would have. He asked what happened when an enemy made the correct choice. Hades said then the enemy had earned the right to become more dangerous tomorrow. They returned to the shrine without celebrating. Merek had left the doors open for the workers, and the kitchen had saved food for the people who had spent the day carrying equipment. A new message waited on the table. It contained an invitation, a warning, and a lie that was almost convincing. Adam reached for it, but Hades stopped him until the staff could be present. The house read the message together. Nobody agreed about the motive. Everyone agreed about the first question to ask. Hades placed the invitation beside the public records and ordered no response until morning. A ruler could answer quickly. A house had to answer in a way it could survive. The lamps burned low while the first arguments began. None of them sounded like fear anymore. Merek wanted to burn it because the seal belonged to a house that had already lied. Hades kept it open on the table and asked who would benefit if the lie disappeared. The answer was not the sender. It was the person who had been expected to repeat the message without reading it. Hades gave that person a chair and a copy of the terms. No oath was offered. The witness received a route home, a wage for the time spent speaking, and the right to refuse another meeting. The shrine gained an enemy who knew the truth and an ally who had not been purchased by it. The mark on the roof did not belong to House Aurea. That was what Merek discovered 2 hours later, after he compared the tiny symbol against the district registry, and found the same shape appearing in 3 businesses that had never publicly dealt with Kaito's family. The mark belonged to a roofing guild that House Aurea had purchased through 2 layers of creditors and 1 conveniently dissolved partnership. Adam sat on the library floor with the copied symbol in his lap. So they paid someone else to cut the ward. Or someone paid them to make it look like Aurea did, Merek said. Hades stood by the window. Which possibility is more useful to whoever placed it? Merek hated when questions produced more work. If Aurea did it, they gain a slow failure they can blame on incompetence. If someone else did it, they gain a fight between you and Aurea. Then we do not give either side the fight yet. Adam looked up. You are going to invite Kaito here. Merek nearly dropped the registry sheet. Hades nodded. Kaito arrived the following afternoon, expecting a trap. He brought only his queen and 1 guard, which Hades noticed. Adam noticed that the guard never put his hand on his weapon. Merek noticed that all 3 of them stared at the patched ceiling before they sat down. The roof mark rested on the table beneath glass. Kaito's face tightened. You found that on your shrine. Yesterday. You think my family placed it. I think someone wants me to think your family placed it. Kaito's queen leaned closer. That guild was under our regional accounts. Was. Kaito did not answer immediately. She did. My uncle sold the debt 6 months ago. The buyer was hidden. Hades slid the ownership chain across the table. Kaito read until his jaw stopped moving. This record is sealed. It was badly sealed. You broke a registry seal. Merek paid for access. Merek coughed repeatedly. Adam cut an apple into 4 pieces and pushed one toward Kaito. The young lord stared at it as if fruit might also contain a political clause. You can eat it, Adam said. He has not started taxing breakfast. Kaito ignored the apple. If someone used my family's old guild to damage your ward, he said, they want you to accuse us before the wager. Yes. And if I admit the guild connection, my father will say I weakened our position. Also, yes. Kaito looked at Hades. You enjoy this. No, I enjoy knowing where the knife is. The queen took the ownership chain and read the final page. There is a missing creditor. Hades nodded. Someone removed the name, which means the absence is the most expensive fact on the page. For the first time, Kaito's posture changed from defensive to interested. What do you want? The original sale record. You think I can obtain it? I think you will try, because someone used your house as camouflage. Kaito's expression sharpened. And if the missing buyer is one of your allies, then I will know which ally to remove. That answer seemed to disturb him more than a threat against House Aurea would have. They left without an agreement. 2 hours later, a sealed copy of the sale record arrived through a registry courier. Merek carried it into the library like a bomb. The missing buyer was not a noble house. It was a charity fund attached to a church in the human world. Adam stopped eating. That is new. Hades read the seal. Holy residue clung to the ink, faint but unmistakable. Fallen, Merek asked. Not enough to know. The room became quieter. Until then, every danger around the shrine had belonged to the underworld's familiar machinery. Debt, rank, patronage, pride. The mark on the roof had introduced another layer. Someone connected to holy power had paid to acquire a guild that had been used to weaken a devil holding. Adam reached for the roof fragment. Hades stopped him. Not with your hand. Adam raised a brow. We do not know whether it reacts to you. You are becoming cautious. I am becoming informed. Beelzebub was still many ranks away. They had no specialist to hand the problem to, so Hades made the household solve what it could. The mason showed them how the damaged ward had been cut. Oren described which nights the roof patrol had been understaffed. The cook remembered a delivery driver asking whether the western wing was still occupied. Merek found 3 invoices with the same clerical error. The breakthrough came from a servant named Tessa, who had been silent through every earlier meeting. The delivery man wore gloves, she said. Everyone looked at her. Tessa swallowed. Not work gloves, white ones. He would not touch the door. Hades asked, why did you notice? Because he asked me to sign his receipt, then pulled the paper away before my hand touched his. Adam sat forward. He was protecting the page from demonic contact. The room shifted around that fact. Hades did not congratulate Tessa. He asked her to show them exactly where the man had stood. They walked the route together. She remembered his wagon facing outward. She remembered that he had never crossed the threshold. She remembered a thin metal case beneath the driver's seat. At the gate, Hades looked back toward the roof. The sabotage had stopped being an abstract conspiracy. It had become a person with white gloves, a wagon, a controlled route, and a reason not to let Devil's skin touch his paperwork. Now what? Adam asked. We leave the repaired ward visible. Merek stared. Visible. If they return, I want them to believe we fixed only what they expected us to find. He ordered a second ward placed beneath the first, independent of the original network. The workers built it from local stone and a stripped-down alarm spell. No noble signature, no imported components, no hidden creditor. The next rain came 2 nights later. Water struck the roof. Nothing leaked. Adam stood beside Hades, beneath the repaired ceiling, and held out an apple. You still owe the library an apology for almost using blue. Hades took the apple. I have never used blue. Adam paused. Both of them looked at the faint blue gathering around Hades' hand. Merek from across the room slowly lowered his pen. Hades studied the energy, frowned, and let it dissipate. That, he said, is not mine. The strange color vanished. No one spoke for several seconds. Adam finally said, "Good, because I was going to ban it from the library anyway." Hades looked at the repaired roof, the holy purchase record, and the place where unfamiliar power had briefly answered an instinct that did not belong in this body. He added a new page to the investigation. Unknown interference. Unlike the roof, that problem could not be patched with stone. Chapter 9. A brief whisper from Cure. The glass desert reflected 1,000 versions of Hades as he walked onto the field. Adam followed with his hands in his pockets. In a remote viewing room at Kyo Academy, Ria's Gremory paused the recording. Sona Citri adjusted her glasses. Issei leaned closer to the screen. "Only 2, he asked. "Only 2 registered pieces," Sona corrected. "That is not the same as only 2 threats." On the field, illusionary armies rose from every mirrored dune. Adam closed his eyes. Hades struck the ground with his spear, sending a controlled tremor through the glass. Real bodies carried weight. Illusions did not. Cracks raced towards 6 concealed devils. Rias watched Hades turn an ambush into a map. He is not fighting for sport. "No," Sona said. "He is buying infrastructure with victories." Issei pointed as Adam stepped between 3 attacks and returned each technique to its caster. That guy copied all of them. The match ended when Hades drove Lord Dantalion from beneath the central dune and rested his spear at the devil's throat. Rias shut off the recording. Surzech needs to know an independent king is rising this quickly. "He knows," Sona said. "The question is why he has not intervened." Ria's Gremory heard the rumor in the middle of a discussion about territory taxes. Sona Citri received the same report from a different channel and distrusted it for the opposite reason. Every witness agreed on the result. In the student council room, Sona placed a match record on the table. A king and a queen. No spare pieces, no visible sponsor, and no conventional formation. Issei leaned over the crystal. "So the guy is strong." "That is the least interesting part," Sona said. Rias watched the replay of Adam stepping through the maze. His movement was not merely fast. He had understood the trap before it closed and chosen to end it without humiliating the opposing peerage. "He is making a reputation deliberately," she said. "Or he is refusing to make one," Sona replied. "Those are not the same thing." The crystal shifted to Hades refusing the announcer's questions. It showed him requesting medical records for spectators before accepting the ranking seal. Ria's expression changed by a fraction. He is not asking anyone to admire him. That may make him more dangerous. Issei raised a hand. "Could we just ask him?" Both girls looked at him. "No," Sona said. Rias closed the record. "Not yet. He has built a faction outside the usual patronage lines. If he wants contact, he will make it possible." Far away, Hades received a brief report that 2 Kyo observers had searched his public match record. He did not ask who they were. He marked the report beside the Aurea roof rune and returned to planning. Adam looked over his shoulder. "Friends. Potential witnesses. You make friendship sound exhausting. It usually arrives with paperwork." Adam laughed, and the sound followed them into the next room where the first serious challenge was already waiting. Rias did not forget the match when the crystal went dark. She reopened the recording after Issei left. Sona noticed. You already watched it twice. I watched the fight. And now, the people around it. Sona sat down again. The second viewing looked different when they ignored Hades. The first camera showed arena workers moving before the match. Hades had submitted a safety map that placed evacuation routes outside the expected combat lanes. The second showed Merrick speaking to a clerk while Adam waited with an apple and apparently no concern for the cameras. The third showed the opposing peerage after defeat. No humiliation. No public punishment. No bodies. Riaz paused. That is deliberate. Sona nodded. He wants witnesses to distinguish power from cruelty. Or he wants them to think that. Those are not mutually exclusive. Riaz smiled. You sound interested. I am interested in systems that become influential without asking permission from existing ones. That was Sona's version of fascination. Issei returned because he had forgotten his bag. He stopped at the door. You are still watching. No, Sona said. He looked at the active screen. That is a strange definition of no. Riaz pointed at the replay. What would you do if you fought Adam? Issei froze. Why are you asking? Because you keep talking about him. I do not keep. Sona looked at him. Fine, I would boost. And then. Boost again. And then. Probably more boost. Sona closed the file. Insightful. Issei looked offended. Riaz laughed. Then the screen changed on its own. A public registry update appeared beneath Hades' ranking. Independent holding expanded. Worker wages current. 3 displaced families registered under voluntary protection. No noble sponsor. Sona leaned closer. That is fast. Riaz looked at the line about displaced families. What does voluntary protection mean in his registry? Sona opened the attached statute. The answer was unusual. Residents could accept territorial protection without entering permanent vassal status. They could leave with notice. Debts could not be transferred into personal loyalty obligations without a separate agreement. Riaz read it twice. That is going to irritate old houses. It already has. A second message appeared. Someone had requested the public match record from Kyo. Not Hades. One of his clerks. Riaz looked at Sona. You searched it under the Student Council account. Sona adjusted her glasses. I used a public terminal. The public terminal belongs to Citri. Sona went still. Issei tried not to laugh. The request asked for no explanation. Only confirmation that the Kyo observers were official Devil-affiliated viewers rather than unaffiliated human researchers. Riaz considered the wording. He is not asking who we are. No. He is asking what category of risk we belong to. Sona frowned. He knows enough to ask the question without forcing contact. Riaz wrote the reply herself. Affiliated Devil observers. No hostile action intended. Public records only. She did not sign her name. Sona looked at her. He will still know. Probably. The answer returned the next morning. Received. Nothing else. Issei stared at the one-word response. That is disappointing. Sona said, it is appropriate. He could have said hello. He does not know us. That has not stopped you from reading his entire public life. Sona slowly turned. Issei raised both hands. Riaz took the crystal. For the next week, they watched from a distance. Not every match. The administrative changes. A new market road opened beside the shrine. A broken ward was repaired. A minor house filed a complaint that Hades had rejected a marriage proposal without opening it. Sona actually smiled at that one. Riaz noticed. You approve. I approve of not wasting time. Then came the first strange report. Holy residue on a roof ward. A trade guild with hidden ownership. House Auria's name near the evidence. Ria's expression sharpened. This is no longer only rating games. Sona looked at the registry map. Someone is probing his territory and trying to make it look like another devil house. Issei sat forward. Fallen angels. Maybe. Judge. Maybe. Hades. Both girls looked at him. What? You said maybe to everything. Because we do not know. He considered that. Could ask. Sona inhaled. Riaz stopped her. Not yet. She looked at the public file. Hades had published enough evidence to make the sabotage visible, without publishing enough to expose the investigation. He wanted observers, but only observers willing to admit what they knew and did not know. Riaz understood the invitation. She opened a private note. Independent King Hades, preliminary observations. She wrote 3 lines. Does not currently seek QO contact. Treats public records as weapons and shields. Do not assume restraint equals passivity. Then she stopped. The 4th line took longer. Possible future ally. She did not write it. Not yet. Across the underworld, Hades received a registry notice that QO had confirmed affiliated observers and nothing more. Adam leaned over the desk. Potential witnesses. Yes. Potential friends. Hades looked at him. Adam smiled. You make that face every time the word friend appears. I do not make faces. Merek, writing nearby, said nothing. Adam looked at him. Merek. The steward kept writing. I value my employment. Adam laughed. Hades returned to the Aurea file. QO stayed on the edge of the map. Not enemy. Not ally. Not yet relevant enough to become either. That was a comfortable distance. For now. Chapter 10, The First Match. The Shrine's audience chamber filled with applicants after Hades' 5th win. Some wanted protection. Others wanted the prestige of joining the famous two-piece faction. Hades interviewed them without offering peerage pieces he did not need to spend. What can you build? He asked each one. Adam waited on the balcony, while a crowd of rejected nobles departed in offended silence. You made enemies, he said. They arrived expecting ownership disguised as service. Below, Merek supervised wagons carrying glass desert minerals through the gate. Those resources would reinforce the shrine and pay for coming challenges. Hades had gained more from 5 matches than applause. Lord Kaito of House Aurea, Merek murmured. His family sits just outside the upper rankings. Kaito looked over the corrected walls and the workers moving beneath Hades' crown. So this is the nameless king everyone fears. Hades descended the steps. If you came to learn whether the stories are true, challenge me. I will, Kaito said, and I will wager something large enough to make the whole underworld watch. Adam bit into an apple behind Hades. The first serious recruitment request arrived in a box lined with black velvet. Inside lay 3 devil pieces, a territorial map, and a letter offering service in exchange for protection from a family Hades had never heard of. Merek read it twice. They want to join before you have enough land to defend them. They want a shield before their enemies notice they are moving. Adam turned one of the pieces over. Its underside carried a shaving of someone else's crest. "This one has already belonged to another king," he said. Merek paled. The letter's writer had not mentioned it. Hades held out his hand, and the piece rose into the air. A thin residue of forced loyalty clung to the metal, designed to report every conversation back to the former owner. "Send the box back," Hades said, with a refusal. With the piece cleaned, and a warning that the next deception will be treated as an attack. Adam glanced at him. "You could have kept the people and broken the mark. A house built by taking desperate people from one trap and hiding them in another is not a house. It is a collection." That answer reached the sender before sunset. 2 more requests followed, both honest. Hades accepted neither immediately. He asked for debts, skills, kin, and the names of anyone who might be harmed by the transfer. The work delayed his next public match. Kaito Oria's agents used the delay to call him cautious, then afraid. Hades allowed the rumors to gather. A faction that could be baited by an insult would be useless when a contract became dangerous. At the end of the night, Adam placed the cleaned piece beside the map. "You know," he said, "most kings begin by collecting weapons. Most kings are surprised when weapons remember who held them first." Chapter 11. The young lord takes notice. The opposing peerage tried to isolate Adam with a teleport maze. Hades let the formation close, then used his aura to overload every gate at once. Adam stepped through the collapsing geometry and caught the enemy king by the collar before the first pawn had been retired. "Cheap spectacle," Kaito said. Below, Hades declined an interview and requested the property ledger promised by the wager. No boasting, no concession to the crowd. Kaito's fingers tightened on the rail. He thinks refusing applause makes him royal. He is collecting revenue, land, and rank, while other challengers collect applause. Hades looked toward the private boxes. For one breath, his gaze met Kaito's across the arena. Kaito felt as if the walls behind him had disappeared. He forced himself not to step back. With a bounded stake. With a stake he cannot ignore. Kaito left before the arena cleared. On the field, Adam glanced toward the empty box. "That boy wants to be seen," he said. The arena emptied in layers. First, the public galleries dimmed, then the private boxes sealed their doors, and finally, the officials began folding the teleportation maze into a storage crystal. Hades waited until the last gate stopped humming. Adam joined him at the edge of the field. The young lord left before the result was archived. He wanted to leave before anyone saw him think. That is a difficult way to live. "King Hades," she said, "you knew Kaito was watching." "I knew someone was." "He will challenge you." "Then he should send terms, instead of sending his temper." "It is simple, not easy." She held out a sealed card. It contained no challenge, only the name of the official registrar Kaito intended to use, and a warning that House Oria's patriarch had begun asking why a minor heir was attending so many of Hades' matches. Hades accepted the card. "Why give me this?" "Because I would rather negotiate with a king who reads before striking than with a boy who wants an audience." Adam studied her. "Are you warning us or him?" "Both." She is afraid. She is counting the cost of being correct. Adam questioned the guarantee's wording. Hades let him edit one line and reject another. The process took an hour and prevented the house from pretending that protection was a gift without conditions. Hades did not turn the discovery into a proclamation. He brought the relevant people into the room and let the person who had been ignored describe what the record had missed. Adam disagreed with the first solution. That disagreement cost the house an hour and saved it from accepting a rule that protected the powerful by accident. The revised arrangement was less elegant than the original. It had more names, more witnesses, and a place where someone could say no without being punished for noticing a flaw. By evening, the staff had used it once. That use mattered more than Hades's approval because the new practice survived without his voice. Adam proposed a repair that would inconvenience the shrine. Hades accepted it, then added the names of the people who could stop the correction if it began doing more harm than good. Adam found the final page and asked whether Hades wanted his approval. Hades told him the house needed his judgment more than his approval. Adam asked whether the king was satisfied. Hades looked at the corrected wall, the open ledger, and the people who had stopped waiting for orders. Satisfaction was not the answer. Continuity was. The house had to keep working after the scene ended, or the scene had only been another performance of power. Hades left the door open and let the next day begin without a speech. Kaito returned home angry enough to break something and disciplined enough not to. That distinction was the only reason the glass door to his father's study survived. The patriarch sat beneath portraits of 14 generations of House Aurea and did not look up when his son entered. You attended another one. It was a ranked match. It was a spectacle. Those are not mutually exclusive. His father's pen stopped. Kaito had spent most of his life learning which pauses meant danger. This one meant he had surprised the man. You are studying him, the patriarch said. I am preparing to defeat him. Then study his weakness. I am. The patriarch finally looked up, and Kaito thought of Hades refusing interviews, asking for injured spectators, leaving Adam's empty chairs empty instead of stuffing the peerage with convenient bodies. He thought of the way the man had looked across the arena, not searching for applause, not searching for enemies, simply measuring. He does not need the audience. His father frowned. That is not a weakness. It is if the audience is the battlefield. Explain. Kaito stepped closer to the desk. Every king above us depends on something outside the arena. A family name, sponsors, merchants, a reputation that keeps weaker houses from testing them. Hades has almost none of that. If he loses publicly, he loses less than we do. Then make him own something. Kaito went still. The patriarch smiled. There it was, the lesson beneath every lesson his father had ever given him. Create a stake large enough that pride and property became the same thing. The mana pool, Kaito said. His father's smile widened. It feeds half our eastern estates. It feeds old machinery and servants who remember when we were richer. It is still ours. And it is large enough that he cannot pretend indifference. Kaito looked toward the window. The mana pool lay 2 valleys away, invisible from the study, but he knew its shape. He had learned to swim there as a child. His mother had taken him to the upper terrace before she died. Workers had bowed as they passed, and he had assumed the bows were respect rather than wages. What if he wins? His father laughed softly. Then you should not challenge him. The answer settled into Kaito like a stone. Later, his queen found him in the eastern courtyard with a practice blade and no opponent. You are thinking loudly, she said. I did not know thought made noise. Yours does. She sat on the wall. Kaito drove the blade through a sequence he had learned at 12. Cut, turn, step, perfect angles. His tutor had praised him for remembering forms. Hades would have asked why the form existed. Father wants the mana pool as the stake. Her face lost its amusement. Kaito. He thinks Hades cannot refuse. He is probably right. Kaito lowered the blade. You think I will lose. I think you have not decided what winning means. He turned. She continued before he could answer. If you want the rank, choose a stake that proves rank. If you want the territory, choose land. If you want Hades to acknowledge you, stop pretending the pool is a chess piece. Kaito's grip tightened. You sound like him. No, I sound like the person who will have to keep your peerage alive when you decide humiliation is strategy. The words struck harder than the practice blade could have. He left the courtyard without dismissing her. The following morning, he went to the mana pool himself. No heralds, no officials. One guard waited at the road while Kaito walked the terraces alone. The first thing he noticed was how loud the pumps were. The second was how many had stopped. A worker with grey horns found him staring at a cracked conduit. My lord. Kaito nodded toward it. How long? 8 months. Why was it not repaired? The worker hesitated. Kaito almost repeated the question as an order. Instead, he waited. The repair fund was reassigned. To what? Your Eastern training arena. He remembered that arena, imported stone, better viewing crystals, a private box his father had called necessary for the family's image. Kaito looked down the dry channel. How many homes does this feed? 32. He walked farther. At the children's ward, an old healer showed him the reduced barrier schedule. At the worker dormitory, a woman showed him a ledger listing mana wages that arrived late whenever the family hosted a major event. At the northern terrace, a steward insisted everything remained within acceptable loss. Kaito hated the phrase immediately. Acceptable to whom? He did not ask aloud. By sunset, his boots were muddy and his challenge felt heavier. His queen was waiting at the road. You came. I own this place. That is not what I said. Kaito looked back at the pool. For the first time, he understood why Hades asked who paid when a king lost. Get me the production records. All of them. Everything. Your father will object. Then he can explain why the pool produces the same number on paper every season, while 3 terraces are failing. She smiled without kindness. Now you are thinking. Kaito handed her the practice blade he had carried all day without using. Do not praise me. I was not going to. That night, he drafted the challenge. He wrote the mana pool into the stake. Then, before sealing the page, he added a clause requiring all existing worker contracts and territorial obligations to transfer with the resource. His father struck the line out. Kaito wrote it back in. The patriarch stared across the table. You are wagering sentiment. No, Kaito said. I am wagering what the pool actually is. For the first time in years, his father looked at him not as an heir being trained, but as a man becoming inconvenient. Kaito pressed his seal into the parchment. Good, he thought. Hades had made inconvenience look useful. Chapter 12. The Mana Pool Rumor. Kaito's proposal arrived on silver parchment. Hades read it at breakfast, while Adam peeled an apple in one unbroken spiral. House RoR offered a 5-stage rating game and placed an ancient mana pool against Hades' shrine, mineral rights, and accumulated ranking credit. The pool feeds 3 estates, Merrick said. Its leyline could support workshops, barriers, or an entire city. And House RoR cannot legally sell it, Hades observed. The former referee leaned over the contract. A sanctioned wager transfers around the restriction. If both kings consent, the rating game authority enforces the result. Adam dropped the peel onto his plate. He is betting his family's heart because you bruised his pride. His pride is not my concern. Hades traced the leyline map. His ability to honor the stake is. He sent a demand for proof of title, production records, and the patriarch's countersignature. Kaito returned the documents within an hour. You forged nothing, she said after inspecting the seal. That makes this worse. My father signed because he knows I can win. Your father signed because you told him Hades would wager everything. He thinks you are buying the shrine. Kaito smiled at his reflection. Then we will both get what we want. Hades did not announce the mana pool to his household. He made Merek close the breakfast room doors and spread the documents across the table while Adam finished peeling his apple. The production figures are too clean, Hades said. Merek tapped the oldest ledger. House Aurea reports the same yield every season despite 3 collapses in the western terraces. Adam looked at the map. Either the pool is lying or someone is taking the difference. The former referee lifted a page toward the light. A second ink had been used to alter the route of the northern channel. Hades touched the paper with one finger. The false line glowed, revealing a narrow contract written beneath the official seal. Fallen light, Adam said. A siphon. Merek swallowed. If the claim is active, House Aurea may not even know how much of the resource belongs to them. Kaito knows enough to wager it. The silver parchment arrived before noon, carried by a courier who looked pleased to be part of history. Hades made him wait while Merek compared every seal. The courier's confidence thinned when the documents were returned with 12 questions written in the margin. Answer him completely, she said. He is trying to frighten us. He is trying to learn what you are betting. Hades signed the final request and sealed it with his own authority. Adam offered him the last slice of apple. You are going to make an enemy out of a family. They began that work themselves. The hidden siphon changed the breakfast room from a planning chamber into an audit. Hades ordered no one to leave. The former referee, Maylis had finally given her a name, Selene, placed the altered production ledger beneath a detection crystal. The crystal lit in 3 colors. Devil magic glowed red. The original Aurea accounting seal glowed gold. The third residue glowed white. Adam stopped peeling his apple. That is holy. Fallen, Selene said, or something made to imitate it. Merek looked at Hades. Can a fallen angel own a claim on devil territory? Own, perhaps not. Enforce, that depends on who signed it. They followed the hidden ink backward through the accounts. The compact had not begun as theft. 200 years earlier, House Aurea had borrowed power during a regional drought. A private intermediary had supplied enough energy to keep the mana pool stable. In return, the family promised a temporary percentage of future output. Temporary had lasted 11 years on the visible contract. Underneath, a second clause had no end date. Kaito arrived before noon with his queen and no entourage. His eyes went immediately to the white glow. You found it. You knew. I knew the yield was wrong. Kaito placed a box of original ledgers on the table. I did not know why. Merek opened the first. Dust rose. For the next 4 hours there was no duel, no threat, and no grand political declaration. There were columns. Adam lasted 30 minutes before leaving to bring food. He returned with bread, fruit, and 2 workers from the pool who understood the actual pumping schedule better than every noble in the room combined. One was Dalla, the same woman who had complained for years about the western channels. The other was a thin devil named Perrin who managed the night pumps. Kaito looked offended when Hades gave them seats at the same table. Then Perrin found the first lie. This number cannot be real. Kaito's queen leaned over. Why? The northern intake cannot move that much mana, not unless the old gate was repaired. It was listed as repaired 17 years ago. Perrin laughed once. It was painted 17 years ago. Kaito closed his eyes. Dalla found the second lie. The worker payroll listed full hazard pay during siphon maintenance. No one she knew had ever received it. Selene found the third. A registry seal certifying the hidden compact bore the name of an official who had died before the amendment was supposedly approved. By evening, the table held 3 separate crimes and one dangerous conclusion. Someone inside House Aurea had been feeding the siphon after the original agreement should have ended. Kaito stood at the window. My father. His queen did not answer. Hades did. Do not choose the guilty person, because the story becomes simpler. Kaito turned sharply. He controls the accounts. He controls some accounts. He signed the wager. That is evidence of pride, not evidence of this. Kaito's anger had nowhere easy to go. Adam returned with tea. Kaito stared at him. Do you always feed people during investigations? People become stupid when hungry. Selene took a cup. Merek took 2. Hades spread the ledgers into a timeline. The original compact, the hidden amendment, the dead official seal, the false repairs, the missing hazard pay, the constant production numbers. Who benefits? Kaito asked. Not your father alone. The siphon drew mana outward, but the missing peril and repair funds stayed within the underworld. 2 thefts were hiding inside one mechanism. Dalla tapped a procurement mark. That symbol. Merek recognized it. It belonged to the same roofing guild, tied to the sabotage at Hades' shrine. The room went still. Kaito looked at Hades. You knew. I suspected a connection. And you did not tell me. I am telling you now, with evidence. That is not trust. No, it is procedure. Kaito stepped toward him. Adam stopped eating. Hades did not move. For a moment, the entire future wager seemed to narrow into the distance between 2 kings. Then Dallas slapped the ledger with her palm. Excuse me. Both men looked at her. She was shaking, but she did not lower her hand. If you 2 are finished deciding which one of you gets to be offended, some of us would like to know who stole 6 years of repair money. Silence. Adam slowly smiled. Kaito sat down first. Hades